Hi guys, today I'm answering a specific question to one of my model drawing students, but this is super helpful for anyone. I mean, definitely figure drawing is one of my deepest passions, so it's related to figure drawing. And here's her question. She's like, wow, I learned fashion illustration, figure drawing on paper, watercolors. I've been doing that for years. Then she's like, I took your iPad class. Now I learned, I have a favorite app. I do fashion illustration and figure drawing on my iPad. She said the iPad is smaller than the paper she used to use, and it's narrower because she's using an app called Procreate, which has tools, hi dipped. This app has tools on both sides of the iPad screen interface, so she literally has to squeeze her drawing between these two toolbars, right? So she's feeling confined, and she got used to this size. So here's her biggest problem. She said that when she goes back to full-size piece of paper, her proportions all messed up. Now, people watching this are all from different levels of experience. Hi. So this is a very real thing and is also very overcomable. So first I'm going to say why it's very real, and then I'm going to tell you how it's very overcomable. Number one, when you're learning to draw figures, something hugely important, I think this is hugely important, is to work with one size for a while, meaning one size of paper. And it doesn't have to be one size of body, but like when I have new, hey, Zaki, when you have new, what do you call it? When I have new students who are like, oh, I want to learn to draw children's wear. I want to learn to draw men. I want to learn to draw petite, junior. I always say, oh my gosh, that's great. It's wonderful. I can do that. You can do that. But in the beginning, allow yourself to stick with one body type. Hi, Chris. This doesn't mean any body type is right or wrong, but stick with one and kind of master it. How you doing? I have to show Chris, I bought something only because of her, and I haven't even used it yet. Shout out to Chris Keys. I bought this. I've never owned anything that looks like this. And I bought it because of you, and I haven't used it yet. I'm going to take one of your courses soon. Amazing watercolor, fashion, fabric artist. I have a feeling you would love this. Okay, back on topic. Shout out to Chris Keys. All right. So, if you are just learning to draw and you're constantly like changing sizes, you're never going to get this feeling of like security or repetition. And what I like to do with my students is get you making sketches of bodies so often in sort of a common size that then every time you have a different size, you can be like, oh, yes, I've got this. Now I'm just going to work with, wider shoulders, longer waist, fuller hip, narrower this or that. But like you feel like you've got it. If you're always changing in the beginning, you're never going to feel like you've got it. You're going to feel like, oh gosh, it's always completely different. If you work from a big piece of paper and then a small piece of paper and then a medium, you're going to be like, oh. So allow yourself for a while to always work in one format. And then here's the thing. Once you start switching, here's my main tips. So I'm going to put this over my paper so I can show them to you. Oh, sorry. Got a call. First step that I'll say out loud is any pose you're working with, look at it. Just look at the figure. It doesn't have to be a figure. It could be a pumpkin. It could be a sofa, but whatever you're drawing. Look at the main object and notice how long it is. Notice how wide it is at its maximum. Maximum length, maximum width, and find out what that relationship is. So if it's a figure, it might be the width of the shoulders or the hips, or maybe if the elbows are on the hips, you might be measuring from elbow to elbow. Whatever the widest part of that pose is, compare it to the length of the pose. It might be, because we always think of bodies as like long. It doesn't matter that it's fashion, just in general. The way we perceive our own body is that it's a long line. like a birthday candle on a cake. But Actually, poses in people are usually quite wide. In fact, most times that I'm looking at like a picture in a magazine or something, it's usually like, it's only 2 times longer than that is wide. And you would never believe that unless you did the math. And this is where like the truth sets you free. It's so liberating because you look at the body, you say, oh, look at that long person. And they say, wait a minute, this pose, the pose is only 2 times longer than it is wide. This is so important. This is what proportion is. Proportion isn't rules like your model must be 10 times longer than her head. I mean, humans like that don't even exist. But what proportion is relationship. It's relating the length to the width of what you're looking at. Or it's relating the length of one part of what you're looking at to the rest of it. So like what you often see in like fashion drawing books is they'll take the length of the head and compare it to the whole rest of the body, which is kind of funny because in a lot of fashion drawings, they usually draw the head smaller than real humans' heads are. But like if I even look at my mannequin, it works. Like the length of my head also takes me to my bust level, takes me again to my waist, then takes me to my hip. So the length of my head is useful information. I can even compare it to the width of my shoulder span for myself or for something I'm looking at. And I'm sorry if I'm like losing you here, but I'm just going to try to go with the stream of consciousness. So proportion is truly relative size of things. Oh, the 12 head thing for fashion drawing, you know why you never got used to it is because it's not right. It's totally, you know, cuckoo. So even 10 heads, no. Fact is, even if I find a tall, skinny model in a magazine and I do the math, she's usually like 6.5 heads, 7 heads long. Never seen a model 10 heads long. Never taught 10 heads. And I had a student this semester, I made a whole video about her because she was like, I took a fashion class at FIT last semester and I was confused. I said to her, no. This isn't my pattern making class, but I got everyone around. I said, not confused. We say we're confused because people we respect who are in positions of authority are telling us things that are completely insane. And that makes us confused. But it's just like, right? So I always say if we were designing sofas, we wouldn't draw them longer or wider than they really are to make them appealing. We would design a beautiful sofa in the exact scale that we need it. And this is what we need in fashion illustration and drawing, right? I mean, I know you know that, but I love to say it out loud because so many people are so eager to get into fashion that they believe that they have to do that. I mean, when I got to Parsons, that was like the big initiation, was learning to draw figures that don't exist anymore. I was like, how does that serve us? So, and for my student who said that she has a hard time transitioning from papers, sorry I'm taking the long-winded route, but I love talking and sharing these things with you guys. I'm going to show you a great way to transition from a big paper to a small paper to an iPad to a medium. First, everything I teach is like, technical's the simple part. Mindset is a big part. Big part that I want to ask the student, who I didn't get to speak to personally yet because she just sent me the question this morning, is, do you allow yourself to warm up or do you go straight into creating something that you want to be perfect? Because that's such a... yes, but absolutely, sofas are fashion to me. It's design. And when you stylize a fashion figure, you are telling a story about it, but it's not design anymore. It's a story about design. Design is real. A elongated figure for me is misogynist and it hurts me. It even hurts my students if they design on a long skinny figure and then they come to make it, their sketch will never translate. Everything will have to be changed. The length versus the width of the jacket, of the shoulder span, of where the neckline falls, of how long the jacket is compared to the skirt, compared to the boots, compared to the legs on any human will never look like what she sketched. So it doesn't make sense to me to design that way. But I totally get it. You know, cars are fashion, sofas are fashion, fashion design is fashion. Fashion illustration that's stylized is a story about design, but it's not design. It's art that doesn't translate. It translates, but it has to change in order to become real. That's how I feel about it. So let's go to the paper. Hang on. And, you know, I'm not saying I have all the answers, but those answers are really important to me as a woman and as a human and as a creator. Okay. So sorry about so then do you draw a different figure for each size? Smaller figures for petite designs, thicker figures, etc.? Actually, yes, because, such a good question. Well, not for every size in a range, like, for example, size 6, size 7, size 8. And guess what? Actually, oh my God, I wonder if I should change the topic because this is so rich. I want to say so much. When you do for different sizes, yes, because you are designing for, you always have an ideal in mind. Not even an ideal, but like a core customer or a core client. So like, I mean, you know, when you shop, each shop you go to, there's certain shops that are great for your body type and others that are useless for your body type, right? So ideally, not only are you going to have a fit model that you fit your clothes on that represent the client you're designing for, which could be yourself or could be someone else, but your designs are for that client. So someone with longer legs might buy that dress and it still might fit them. Someone with shorter legs might still buy that dress and it still might fit them, but it's going to look slightly different on each one. But here's the thing, let me just one more second, is that also in fashion design and when you go shopping, there is no regulation of the length or width or sizing of things either. So we are constantly, right, thinking, oh, why doesn't this fit me? Well, even someone who's a size 6 or someone who's a 38-inch hip, that still doesn't designate that necessarily her shoulders are going to be any particular width, that her bust is going to be a particular height or lowness or fullness or less fullness, or that her waist, like shoulder to hip measurement, will be longer or shorter, right? Like there is no standard. If you create clothes that are a little bit, hi Karen, I believe that we should draw, when we sketch, we need to sketch exactly who the proportion we are designing for, as well as the aesthetic we're designing for. So I also, in my pattern making classes, students are often like, oh, did I do this right? Did I do this wrong? There are things you can do right or wrong, but actually, who's to say, right? Some designer, for example, pants, some designers are gonna have like curved side seam, high crotch, low waist, full backside, you know, that's going to be like how they fit pants. Someone else is going to fit pants high waist, straight side seams, you know, the crotch is like an inch away from the actual body, the backside is like totally straightened out, you know, there's like, it's so much of that is based on your aesthetic, your client's aesthetic, whoever your target customer is, like what they value, how they want to be perceived, what they think is beautiful, as well as you. All these choices happen in the design process, but there is no one right way to fit a pant, let's say. There are possibilities and options, but there's not one way and there's not one body. Like, that's why ethnic clothing was so like adjustable and loose, and couture was per customer. Ready to wear is this crazy thing where we make clothes for one body and hope it will fit a bunch of people, but it's still never really made for any one person. So often we fault our own bodies, or we fault ourselves as designers for things that are really just choices. Okay, I wasn't ready for that one. But I was gearing up to, I'm going to continue with this just so I can share it with my student who asked this question. Okay, so I'm going to take this pad of paper that is, I would really like to fix the light situation, but let me see if I can get, sorry, if I can just get my tripod out of the light. And I also want you to be able to see my paper. Hang on, guys. I thought that was my paper. It was the ceiling. Okay. I want you to be able to see my paper from top to bottom, ideally, because that's what we're talking about. Okay. So let's just pretend that this is the top of my paper and the bottom of my paper, which you can actually see the bottom. This is a question of how long is my tripod. If I'm coming to sketch figures on this page, I have this much space to work with, my actual paper. But I don't have to draw my figures from the tippy top of the paper to the very tippy bottom of the paper, right? So whenever you come to a page, you can start by kind of giving yourself a little margin. Do you know what I mean by margin? It's like a little blank space at the top and bottom of the page. So forget about that head thing there. Yeah, you let your drawing happen within the page. You don't have to use the whole page. Another thing I talked about was just that you're going to compare. I'm talking right now about drawing from something you're looking at, because that's how I like students to begin before they start drawing what's in their head. Because in drawing what you look at, you build a vocabulary. But the other thing I wanted that I was mentioning before we got into the other subject was, do you allow yourself to warm up? So if you're coming to different sizes of paper, you want to warm up first. You shouldn't expect that you come to a new size piece of paper and that you're suddenly going to be like so comfortable on it, like just magically adjust and do the perfect drawing on this new piece of paper. No, I think what you should do is take that size of paper and allow yourself to get comfortable at it. Sorry, I'm drawing while looking through my phone and I'm not, okay, let me get a different pencil. Let me use this. Just allow yourself to get used to, for example, this is a smaller page than I usually use. So, oh, thanks, hon. Like for example, Karen, in your work, you have like you usually work in a particular size, right? Maybe not all the time, but like in general, your illustrations are a certain size. And that's important because it gives you a certain amount of familiarity and ease every time you come to that page. You know, you have, your orientation is kind of built in, but every time you would adjust, you'd have to adjust for a minute. Anyone would. Okay, so for example, if I've been working this big all day, let's see, you margin first. Oh, wow, that's so affirming to hear. Hey, CT. Okay, so now let's say I'm suddenly, and again, remember how I was talking about how long is a pose compared to how wide it is? I'm just going to show you on this one. The width of this pose compared to the length of it. Again, did you see that? It's only 2 times longer than it is wide. You go through oodles of paper, right? Nobody ever thinks that, though. People love to think that you don't, right? People love to think you have some, I mean, you do have superpowers, but that it's even more supernatural than that. Allow for mistakes, crinkle it and toss it. Yes. So let's say The student who was asking me, how do I adjust from working on my iPad to working on my paper? Because now every time I come to paper, my proportions are messed up because I've been working on a little iPad and I've adjusted. So if you're transitioning back to a new size, give yourself playtime to warm up. As you can see, I'm having the same problem because this paper is a certain size, but in order to fit on the phone screen, I had to cut it off up here. So my awareness knows that the page is that big, but I'm trying to work smaller and it's throwing me off in my own proportion. So yes, I'm human too. And this is real. This is a real thing. But it doesn't take too long to adjust. You just have to make sure you allow yourself to have this warm-up time. Well, I start on sketch paper first to just get you. Karen says, well, just to get used to, it's on white, where the figure should place. Then I move to the Bristol board. Amen. I didn't know that, Karen. I always thought you went straight to the page. Even, see? We all love to assume. Now a pose like this, how wide do you think it is compared to the length? Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Okay, she's 3 times longer than wide. And remember, when I talk about width, I always look for like the maximum width of the pose, which actually might be from bust to elbow. It's up to, but if I was looking at a photo or a model, I'm not making it up. It's reality that's guiding me. Reality, the truth will set you free. So you can literally plot out your page. I wish I had a model in front of me. I could have prepared that ahead of time. But literally think, how wide is this pose compared to how long it is, and stay true to that. So what happens often, I have students at Parsons who have teachers who have them drawing on 11 by 17 paper. This kills me because 11 by 17 paper is really narrow. I just folded this, and really long. And what it forces you to do is squish her. And you never want to make yourself squish your models because it makes you have to lie about the pose, and it makes you have to, it means that you can't make the pose as wide as it really is. You can only make it as long as it is. So you're always squishing it, which usually means you get less movement, less reality, less beauty. Like it gets all squished and very vertical. I would never ever confine my students to a piece of paper that was way narrower than it was long. Okay, that makes sense. So I have this pad here. For example, if I were to use it the tall way, hang on, this is kind of like what 11 by 17 paper is. It's long and skinny. But so if I were to use that, I'd probably end up having to cut off part of the pose. Maybe not, okay, but I know with 11 by 17, they do it all the time. And I'm like, how can they do this to you? Hang on a second. But if I'm going to start working this big, again, I'm going to allow myself to warm up a whole bunch. I'm going to do a bunch of loose drawings until I feel like I've adjusted to the new size format. Okay? And it may not have an extra long limbs. Hello, thank you. And that's not something, so many people will say that's the way to go. And I just say, if you catch the beginning of this video, we had a big discussion about, no way, Jose. In fact, hang on. I feel like I want to bring the bust down a little bit. And again, like we were talking about earlier with sizing, whether that bust is way up here or further down depends on which, even the same client in a different bra is going to have a different shape there. And then beyond that, different people will have different shape there. And so you have to make some decisions. what you're designing for. Another thing I'm going to show you is I'm just going to smudge through this to make it feel more alive, which is a lot of fun. Okay, and then I have one more thing I wanted to say to this student who was having a hard time adjusting from page to page. Let me flip this. I'm going to review quickly in my head. Karen says, fashion illustration allows for exaggerated figures, but I think you can get the proportional figure first and then you can stylize. Yes, I think that when we understand how to put movement into the body, how to shade dramatically, how to, like, we don't need to stylize it that much when we have skills. You know, it becomes exciting anyway, right? And then, you know, there's other reasons. I believe when we're doing for design and for people, like if someone asks me to illustrate them and then they ask me to change their body, I get very confused. I had a client at a shopping mall. You know, I was illustrating her at a Lord & Taylor event, and she's like, can you please make me skinnier? And I'm looking at her, I'm like, you're so beautiful. And I'm like, I feel like I'm betraying someone, probably myself, if I'm drawing them some other way. And I guess that will disappoint some people, and that will make some other people happy. But I find that it's confusing territory to tread on, personally. I'd love to know your thoughts about that, guys. Karen says, true. Aw, you know? Because I do have some illustrators I love, and, you know, they completely butcher the body into something else. And it's just, it's cute, it's fun, as long as I can allow myself to separate from it. But I love when designers design for themselves in a way. You know what I mean? Wait, is that, wait. Oh, is that Patty? Hi, Patty. I was like, I couldn't remember whose handle that was. Karen, for me, I tend to streamline my brides, and I totally get that. I understand that. And by the way, Karen, are you still? I got to catch up with you. We have to have like our biannual phone call. Yeah. Oh, and also, Patty, we are having a live stream at 4. Karen. So maybe not changing them so much, but curving them a little bit. Yes, I mean, even when they get their bridal gowns, right? They're usually getting a gown. Okay. That has to, well, I'm glad that you're chatting with us, Karen. That it's sculpted, that it's carved, that it lifts here and it pulls in there, right? I mean, they're already purchasing their dress that way. And yet, at the same time, they want to feel reflected. It's an interesting topic. I tend to be like super dramatic about it because when I look at the work I did in school now, it really pains me to see how normal I thought it was to draw such bizarre figures. Appeals to the eye, right? Yeah, so you're like idealizing, but not distorting. Patty says it is. So, key lesson for today. I wonder how long this is, because I know if it's over an hour, I won't be able to share it on IGTV. Maybe it's a good one to replay. Key lesson is when you're changing platforms from like a smaller piece of paper or a bigger piece of paper or to an iPad, no one would ever expect themselves to start whipping out proportionate stuff right away. So when you're transporting yourself from one media to another, you've got to allow yourself to warm up. I love you too. Bye, Karen. Hope all is well with the family. Happy holidays if I don't talk to you before that. So just scratch out some figures. Feel out the space of the page. Feel out how that figure is going to fit on the page. long before you start actually doing your illustration. Not long before, but let yourself crank out a few figures just to feel out that space. And this is very important, specific to the person who asked me this question. If your iPad, if you're using iPad or something that has toolbars on both sides and you feel like you're getting into a narrow canvas size, don't force yourself to use the whole length. If you're getting squeezed into the width, then you also have to let yourself reduce the length of that platform. Like I showed you by like sketching in, what do you call them? Margins. It's distorted on this paper. It's huge because I was just trying to fit onto my camera length. And yeah. And then if you're working with something longer, still, this, I think I had made it too long simply because the paper was. And then I shortened her legs because I don't want them to be unrealistically long. So Model Magic is actually open right now for enrollment, and I have a special today, which is if you purchase today, if you're one of the first, when this special is over, I'm going to take the special off of the sales page. So if you sign up and it says that the special is still happening, then you know it's still happening. If you sign up this weekend while the special is happening, you're going to get not only the Model Magic course, which is 14 fundamentally changing model drawing exercises, not finished illustration things, model drawing exercises that are going to enhance your expression, your movement, your depth, your really undoing patterns that we often bring to beginner drawing so that we start to see and draw the way in a deeper, more expressive way that is also more honest and more true. It's like everything you're afraid to do, that when you do it, you realize you're proud. I mean, you think you're like, oh, that's going to be ugly. And then when you dive into it, you come out more beautiful on the other side. It's like ugly duckling kind of vibe. Very liberating, very meditative. And the lessons are pretty short. They're like 20-minute videos. There's 14 of them. You could do one a week. You could do one a day. You could do one a month. But the thing is, these exercises are going to stay with you forever. I know this because they have stayed with me forever, which is why I share them. They never get old. You can always tap into them, and they bring you back to your wisdom. They always give you surprising results. And what you can do is you can bring them back anytime you're warming up or anytime you're feeling stuck. They'll bring you back to your truth. You have lifetime access to the course. All of the videos are available right at the beginning. And the special is that if you purchase it while the special is in effect, you will get another one of my, not Freedom Fashion Program, but any of my other digital courses. You'll get one for free. What happens is when you sign up, you'll get an email from me where I'll tell you, okay, now you get to choose your second course. So that might be the Design Fashion Illustration Process course. It might be the Fashion Design Infusion course. It might be the Winter Outerwear Knitwear Illustration and Design course. It might be the Evening Wear course. It could keep you busy for all of 2019. Or it might be the iPad illustration course, which kind of relates a lot to what we talked about today, which is going from analog. Model Magic is analog, pencil. And hi, Kathleen. And that the iPad illustration course is iPad. If you have those two in tandem, you have a really rich foundation that you will benefit from all year long. The other thing is, if you, rather than getting one of the courses, if you sign up for Model Magic, sorry that we wrapped up our lesson, but I'm going to share it on IGTV and YouTube probably later today. But if you don't want to get two courses, when you sign up for Model Magic while the special's running this weekend, you will get two, this is crazy, 2 60-minute sessions with me, which means we schedule a video call, usually on Zoom, and you show me your sketches, you ask me your questions, and we work through anything and everything you're asking about. That's crazy. I don't even know why that's like, wow. And I'm doing that so that I'll get to connect more one-on-one with some of you, because that's so magical. I love it. But I can only do so many of those. Okay? So that's what's going on. I'm going to go edit this video and put it out. And I hope today's information was useful for you. If it was, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, you can click the little bell to get notifications. If you're here on Insta, you can follow me. I have freebies for subscribers in my bio at fashionillustrationtribe.com to get a free package of gifts. There's even a free course to work with fashion, art, and creativity. And my website is fashionillustrationtribe.com. You can always get more information about the courses and a lot of free articles there. All right. Thanks for joining me. See you in a couple hours. Bye, guys.